This video is designed to assist the student in studying the connective tissues. Connective tissues are different from epithelial tissues in the fact that there is never a free surface. Most are highly vascularized, and the cells are not closely packed together. As a matter of fact, one definition of connective tissues refer to them as being a loose aggregation of cells suspended in a non-living ground substance or matrix. The different types of connective tissues which you are responsible for in lab include loose connective tissue or areolar tissue, bone tissue or osseous tissue, adipose tissue or fat tissue, and hyaline cartilage. You're responsible for being able to identify these through the microscope and also being able to tell their functions, where they are located in the body, and other pertinent information about each one. The first connective tissue that we'll talk about and look at is loose connective tissue or areolar tissue. It's composed of fibers and cells, the collagenous fibers and elastic fibers, and macrophage cells, fibroblast cells, mast cells, and plasma cells. The functions of this particular tissue are actually the functions of these fibers and cells. These functions are strength. The strength is provided by the collagenous fibers. The collagenous fibers are composed of the protein collagen. Elasticity. Elasticity is accomplished through the elastic fibers. These elastic fibers are also protein in nature, composed of a protein called elastin. The cells that are located in the matrix material produce the fibers. Those cells that do this are called fibroblast cells. The term fibroblast means to make fibers or fiber maker. Phagocytosis is accomplished by cells called macrophage cells. They eat other cells and cellular debris within this tissue. Antibodies are produced from plasma cells within this tissue. Plasma cells are actually types of white blood cells that have invaded this tissue. And an anticoagulant called heparin is produced by mast cells. There are other cells in loose connective tissue, but these are the primary ones. Locations of loose connective tissue are literally throughout the body, but especially in forming the thin, fragile membranes that help to support organs and hold organs together, and also within the lower layer of the skin we have a lot of loose connective tissue. Let's now look through the microscope at the loose connective tissue. This is loose connective tissue with some of the cells here and here. You're not responsible for identifying the cells, but you are responsible for knowing which cells are located in this tissue. You are responsible for identifying the fibers. These thin fibers, as we see here, are elastic fibers. This fiber up here are elastic fibers. I'm going to change the focus a little bit and we'll see these darker fibers these thicker fibers come into focus. These fibers here, we've got another one there, probably some more over in here. These are the collagenous fibers, composed of the protein collagen. Collagenous fibers provide strength. The elastic fibers provide elasticity for this tissue. Bone tissue. Bone tissue provides support and form to the body, protects vital organs, serves as an attachment place for muscles, serves as a storehouse for minerals, and is where red blood cells are produced. Obviously, the location of bone tissue is in the bones. Let's look at bone tissue through the microscope. First of all, we look at this on low power. We see that the structures or bone tissue is composed of structures, composed of concentric rings. This whole structure here that I'm circling is called an Haversian system or an osteon. We see one here. We see another one over here. This would be an entire osteon or Haversian system. We have another one up here, and so on. All of these Haversian systems being located very close together, very compact. This area in the center of each osteon is called an osteonic canal or Haversian canal. This is where blood vessels and nerves pass through this bone tissue or osseous tissue. These dark spaces along here are called lacunae, and these are pockets which contain the actual bone cells called osteocytes. So these lacunae are what are arranged in concentric rings around the Haversian canal. Let's go up on high power now. We've centered in on one of these Haversian canals or osteons. This is the Haversian canal. This is a lacunae. You can't see the actual bone cell inside, but there are bone cells called osteocytes inside. Here's another lacunae with a osteocyte inside. And here, all of these dark areas are lacunae with osteocytes inside. The little fibers that you see radiating out from the lacunae, these fibers in here, are called canaliculi. These fibers are actually minute tubes through which nutrients and waste pass from the Haversian canal out to the cells. These little fibers, actually tubes, are the canaliculi. All of the what appears clear in between the fibers and the cells in here, all of this area is actually calcified material, calcium and phosphorus salts, and the rings of calcified material are called the lamella. All of this that is not dark except for the Haversian canal, all of the white area between the fibers and between the cells and lacunae is calcified material that makes this bone tissue hard, arranged also in rings called the lamella. The next connective tissue that we want to look at is adipose tissue or fat tissue. Adipose tissue provides insulation for the body, provides a food reserve or storage of food in the form of fat or oil droplets, and it provides support and protection for certain areas of the body. The largest area of fat or adipose tissue concentration is in the subcutaneous layer of the skin. We also find large areas of fat around the heart, around the kidneys, and at joints. Let's look at fat tissue or adipose tissue under the microscope. The cells of adipose tissue are called adipocytes. What makes them different from other cells is that they have a very large, centrally located vacuole. This open space is actually the center part of the cell called the vacuole. This is the area where storage of a fat droplet occurs. These cells, as I said, are called adipocytes. This is probably the most compact type of connective tissue because there's very little space between cells. There's a little space here, there's a little more space over here, but most of these cells, like these two and this, these cells are very closely packed together, more closely packed than most other types of connective tissue cells. Because there is such a large central vacuole here, the nucleus has been pushed over to the edge. Sometimes we can see a thin ring of cytoplasm around the edge of the cell, but most of the time we can't, but we can usually see the nucleus that has been pushed out. This is a nucleus, this is a nucleus, and here's a nucleus of these adipocyte cells. So this is adipose tissue or fat tissue. The next tissue that we're going to look at is hyaline cartilage, the next connective tissue. This hyaline cartilage provides protection for certain parts of the body, gives flexibility to certain parts of the body, and provides support. There are other types of cartilage, but hyaline cartilage is the most common. This is the cartilage that we find at the ends of bones. It helps to protect them, supporting the larynx and the trachea. And we find this type of tissue forming the fetal skeleton before this tissue converts into bone tissue. Let's look at hyaline cartilage under the microscope. Hyaline cartilage is going to be located on the same slide that you used in identifying the pseudostratified columnar epithelium. This is the pseudostratified columnar epithelium here. You have your basement membrane and you have connective tissue all through here. This is actually the hyaline cartilage. Here's a band of it from this point to here, and then another band of it from here to here. We're only on scanning, we're on low power here. So we're going to boost it on up to high power and look at the structures a little more closely. Here we are now on high power. The structure that surrounds the band of hyaline cartilage here and also down here is called the perichondrium. The perichondrium does have some blood vessels in it, but the actual cartilage in the middle is avascular. This is the only connective tissue that does not have a direct blood supply. For this reason, hyaline cartilage is difficult to heal. These bubbles are the lacunae, again, as we saw them in bone tissue, except now we can definitely see that they are open areas with the cartilage cell located inside. From here down to here is the cartilage cell or chondrocyte. In many of them you can see the nucleus here, and in some you may be able also to see the nucleolus. So this is hyaline cartilage with the perichondrium that surrounds the tissue, the lacunae, which are the open pockets that contain the actual cartilage cells, the chondrocyte, and here we have the chondrocyte nucleus. Here's another good lacunae with the chondrocyte and the nucleus. Hyaline cartilage.